Hey, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast, now with Twice the Sci-Fi. We are super excited to have our first official guest of the year. You're the first guest of the year, Troy, so that's pretty awesome.
I was kind of scared now.
Yeah, no pressure, right? Last week was the first episode we did of the year. It was just Stevie and me kind of talking stuff, but now the pressure's all on you to make this episode good, so don't let us down.
We're in trouble.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about you, Troy?
Let's see. I'm from the Grand State of New Hampshire. I started doing writing like everybody back when you were a kid and didn't really do anything. And then probably back about 2016, I started publishing some. It was called Near Fiction. It's kind of like, you ever heard of Amazon's Kindle Worlds?
Yeah.
So I was publishing stuff through there for the G.I. Joe property.
Okay.
And I had never been able to get anything finished or published until, for whatever reason, that just kind of clicked and people bought it. So I'm like, hey, I can actually kind of maybe do this. So then I published my first fantasy book after that, and took a couple years to try to get the second one out, and wasn't able to really. The story wasn't clicking, and procrastinating and all that fun stuff. And then discovered a lit RPG, and the first book, Greyhole, just flew out, and I found Athon and went from there.
So now do you identify as a lit RPG man?
Yeah, pretty much. I got
like
a bunch of other stuff that we'll be playing around, but the majority is going to be lit RPG, game lit going forward.
That's awesome. Well, we haven't. I think we've had one lit RPG game lit guy on before, James A. Hunter, who we were talking about before. Yeah. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what this very specific subgenre of fantasy is?
Well, the way I described it to people is, the broader genre is game lit, and that's anything that kind of takes place in a game world. And everybody knows Ready Player One, and that's a great example of game lit, because the majority of the book and the plot revolves around the game world. So that's the thing that classifies it as game lit versus a fantasy or a sci-fi or anything like that. Lit RPG kind of takes that and starts adding in stats and levels, experience from that you get in like normal RPG. So if you ever play Skyrim or World of Warcraft or something like that, your character progresses, you get experience points, and you get more skills and as you go along. So that's
interesting. So the lit RPG actually adds in, or it shows the sort of the stats as opposed to just the sort of general power up that you get in I guess game lit.
Yeah, pretty much. And you get to see character sheets and how the different stats affect different aspects of the powers and the skills that they get as they go along. And there's two kind of styles. There's what they call crunchy, which is very stat heavy.
Okay.
And you get down to really the little tiny little bits of the skill points. And then there's the light, which is what my stuff is, where it's not, the stats and everything are still there. It's just not as prevalent, or you don't get down into the nitty gritty as much.
That must be kind of, I guess, not confusing, because you got the idea in your head, but do you have to plan out a lot of like the stats from the beginning, like how high you can go?
Yeah, I have a whole document that's basically the rules. Everything and all what level they get the new abilities and how they rank up and how they get stronger as they go along, and what the formula and calculations are for hit points. Like you get the next level and how many new hit points you get, because if you mess that up, they're going to catch it. The fans are very on top of this kind of stuff. I've gotten a couple comments where like, he got 5 points here, and the next level he got 10. What's going on?
I feel like that's a lot more technical. Like that sort of mathematical calculation, or that sort of calculation. Is there like a guide for new game lit RPG writers? Like here's how you calculate it, or it's just kind of like
everybody's got their own system too.
Okay.
So every book is going to be different in how it happens, and some are like more open, like a Skyrim, or like the old Ultima Online, where you basically just skill based. And then some of them are more class-based, like World of Warcraft. So you kind of stuck to like mine is class-based. So like my main character is what they call a skirmisher. So he's kind of stuck that. So he's got to follow that path of skills and abilities. Where there's trying to think of one I just read. Can't think of one off the top of my head. Where it's a little bit more of an open world, kind of like a Skyrim, where you just kind of go through and you just gather skill points, and you can build your character how you want. So you can still cast magic and fight with a sword at the same time, kind of thing.
Interesting. And okay, so you said there was the crunchy, and then
Yep.
what was the other kind of lit RPG?
Just light.
Just light. Okay.
There's no fun term for it.
Where it's more focused on the game itself as opposed to the the very quantified progression. Interesting.
Yeah, it's all still there because you have to pay attention to the stats no matter what. That's because that's what makes it lit RPG. But the crunchy they're just very more stat heavy.
Okay.
You see like you get if gathering a skill point and say swords, they'll break it down to now you're doing two more damage and 5 seconds of attack speed quicker, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Do you like that style? Do you like writing that style or reading that style, or do you prefer the lighter?
I kind of like the lighter a little bit more than the crunchy. I'm not as big of a fan of reading the crunchy because, especially in audio, the stat blocks can get pretty repetitious and
I bet.
kind of boring.
And then when you're reading it, you can kind of gloss over it because he now hits a little bit harder, and the amount of how much is not necessarily as important. Interesting. So what got you into game lit in the beginning? Like, how did you fall into that?
Well, I've always been playing like World of Warcraft, Skyrim. The RPGs have always been the kind of games I like to play. And years ago, I got into World of Warcraft back with the beta, which was like 15, something like that years now, which is crazy. But it was like, I want to write the adventures of my guild that I'm in, and follow the crest change and actually write those stories. And they never really went anywhere. And then as I started writing my fantasy series, started hearing about lit RPG and game lit and stuff, and I started looking. I'm like, right, this is kind of what I wanted to do before. So I just started reading a couple of the books. I'm like, I can do this. This is actually going to be kind of interesting, kind of fun. So.
Interesting. That sounds pretty cool. So tell us a little bit about your story specifically, the one that we're going to be discussing today.
Skyrim's Online is kind of a combination World of Warcraft Ultimate Online, which was two of my favorite games. And it's the traditional for the genre trapped in the game. So the players are all playing, it's kind of game lit RPG is kind of near future. Everything takes place in the future so that they can be in the very immersive VR kind of games instead of just at a keyboard and everything. Now everything's VR, virtual reality, and immersive, and you get transported into the game. So there's the next level gaming. So they're playing the games. There's what they call the glitch, and everybody the games kind of shut down, and they log back in, and they're kind of trapped in the game. So they never really logged out. And the main character uses his portal stone to go back to town. The next thing you know is he winds up back in the start of town, and he's back to being level 1.
Oh,
and there's a note that comes out from the developers and says, well, we had an issue, and basically everybody's brains got fried who was connected to the game, but we managed to save a handful of you, and now you live in the game.
Wow.
So then he's the main character, Hall, and everybody he meets has kind of figure out, well, okay, we're here, so now we're living, so what are we going to do? But they're discovering that the game is not what they remember. Things have been changing, and more as the books progress, more and more things change, and it leads to the kind of I don't want to give away too much, but kind of leads to a bigger story. There's something going on behind the scenes.
Interesting. That sounds so much like just like we were saying earlier, Sword Art Online is the only real experience I have with this. And it was, it was interesting to see the way that the anime developed, like how the characters lived inside the story or inside the game,
I've gotten some comparisons to Sword Art Online.
Yeah.
A couple of people compared my books to that, and I haven't seen it yet. I got to check it out one of these days.
It's okay, it like true anime, it doesn't really have a satisfying ending. It's sort of this strange ending. I actually ended up not watching the rest of it because it started out. The first one was sort of this fantasy one. The second one went to like a gun, like a sort of a post-apocalyptic thing, and then there was one season that went to like a fairy sort of realm. Like it bounced around a lot. A lot of people really enjoyed it. For me, it was a little harder to watch, but I liked the characters. They get locked inside the game, like you say. The developer is the one who does it. He gets them locked inside the game, and he says, I want to be the god of my world, which is the way that this one is.
Yeah. Kind of sounds like one of the bigger series, Eden's Gate. kind of starts off that way. Is they're playing the game, and the developer who created it did something to the VR pods that they use that he wanted. You know, the world was overpopulated, and he wanted to create this beautiful world for everybody to go into and live their lives and get away from the real world. And basically, anybody that logs in is killed and lives in the game.
Oh wow! Oh, you know what? That I was thinking of the episode of the Black Mirror. I can't remember what it is, but it's how the whole thing is set inside a virtual reality for people who wind up dead or things like that. I really like that one. It's sort of like a digital version of heaven.
Yeah, there's another series. It's 8-Bit Bastards is kind of set up along those lines. Is after everybody dies, they go to a game setting that they basically live there, and I think it starts off when they've been in there for like 700 years or something like that.
Interesting. I like the sound of that. All right, so one of the things that we do on the Fantasy Fiends podcast, we definitely dump our guests into the deep end on this. We talk about something awesome that happened, over the course of the last week or two. I will start to give you a couple of minutes to think. Amazing news for, I guess, after long last. I finished the last book of the Silent Champions, book 6, The Last March.
Nice.
This book, I started writing it, I think, in August. And it was kicking my ass. I just couldn't figure out how to end it. I was struggling so much with it. So I put it aside, wrote 4 other books, all sci-fi. And then come the new year, I was like, screw it, I'm finishing it. So I sat down, but it was like it gave like that break, that time away from it kind of refreshed my creative energy to tell the story. Because it's basically the story of The Last March is all of these people are marching to their death in sort of a 300 style stand. So that so many of them are going to die. So the amount of sort of like creative and emotional energy expended to make all of those deaths matter and meaningful and, interesting, because it's basically this 100-mile long mountain pass that they're trying to stop the enemy from getting through. And so it's just like, how do you make that interesting? So it was really a difficult story, but today I finished it. It's only 80-some thousand words. It came out shorter than I intended, but it's done and off to the beta readers, so I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I can get back to writing the story that's been really interesting for me about my paraplegic former special ops sniper turned government hitman. That's the one that I've been having a ton of fun with. That's actually how I signed with Athon. They were like, oh, we want that one. So it's been exciting, but so it feels really good to have that done, because that's been weighing on my mind for about the last 4 months, which usually I'm the kind of guy who starts a book, finishes it, nothing else in between. But this one, I just had to put it aside.
Oh, God, I wish I could do that.
Yeah. You jump around between projects a lot?
Oh, God, yeah. I got the third book of, so the big thing was that I finally got the third book edits done. I got those back from the editor, so it's off to the narrator now. So he started work, Pavi has started work on that. So that should be on the next month or two.
Who's the narrator?
That would be a big thing. Pavi Prosco.
I haven't heard any of this stuff.
Yeah. He's done a couple other things. He did Eden's Gate, which is one of the bigger ones.
Nice.
And he did Shift, another lit RPG, which is a good one to check out. I gotta give that one pops every time I can, because it's been written by a friend of mine. So
awesome.
And then I forget what else he's done, but he's really good narrator. I like what he did with the book.
Very cool.
Yeah, but yeah, I got that, and I started a kind of a spin-off series that's kind of like a parallel track kind of thing, exploring another part of the world. So that book's moving along. Got a sci-fi book I'm trying to finish up, and I've been wanting to try to find something that I can write that my girls will end up liking eventually. So I'm working on developing a lit RPG that they can get into when they get older.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You were talking about it, and I was just like, oh, I'm writing the sci-fi series. And I was like, wait a minute, I can just create a popular game in this sci-fi series. And then if I ever wanted to go the game lit or lit RPG route, just have the, character from that world that I've already created, and mention the game. It would be a fun way to tie it together.
Oh, yeah, it's great to be able to do that with.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, so today's wait, did you share your good news? Something interesting, exciting?
Yeah, I think that was just the book 3 is off to the narrator, so that should be on in the next couple of months.
That's always so exciting.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to getting my book 1 back from the narrator sometime soon, and I just got Podium started on the Silent Champions, so super excited about that. They got
Nice.
Ralph Lister, who did the Malazan series, and so this whole series is basically like, actually the book that I just finished now was inspired by the Chain of Dogs from Malazan book 2. I just love.
Read Malazan.
You never read that one?
Not yet.
It is. It's mind-blowingly large, confusing as all hell, but what you take away from it is just amazing.
Yeah, I keep seeing it recommended, but I just haven't gotten around to doing it yet. You know, Athon keeps me busy reading their books, so
yeah, I know that feeling. Too many great books to read, not enough time. And Malazan is like, it's like the Wheel of Time. It's 10 books long for the core series, and there's all the, the add-ons. Yep. So by the time, that's like a year of your life if you're a fast reader. It's a big investment.
I used to think I was a fast reader, and then once I started writing and get into all the like the Facebook groups and stuff like that, and learning about the marketing of being, an indie writer, self-published and all that, and finding out about the whale readers and how fast some of these people actually read. I'm like, okay, I'm slow.
I know. It is insane. It's insane. I've had people like message me saying, I started reading the Silent Champions, at the beginning of the year, and it's the 15th, and this is like the series ended at 972,000 words, just short of 1 million words for those 6 books. And they're like, oh yeah, I've been waiting for book 5 to come out. It just came out yesterday. So it's like, how are you so fast?
Right? I don't know how they can do it.
Yeah, it's insane. But it's like if that's what they do.
One
of my best friends is a trucker, and he listens to audio books all day long.
Yep.
And I'm so jealous of that because I love that. I've been listening to an amazing audiobook series that's made it so much more fun to go to the gym. Like I'll actually volunteer to drive just so I can listen to the audiobook in the car on the way there and back.
Yeah. I actually just started listening to audio last year. So let's see, Greyhound came out in July. So probably the first audiobook I listened to would have been at the end of June. Because I would always figured it was like, I'm sit at a desk all day, but I get interrupted throughout the day and have to answer emails and read articles and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I can never get into it because I just get interrupted too much. And then when I signed with Athon and they put the book in audio, I had to listen to the narrators to get an idea of if it was going to fit the book. And they sent me Web of Eyes to check out. And since then, I've been listening to somehow managed to get to work when I was at the office and just listen to a book now. So I usually get a book I'm reading and a book I'm listening to.
Yep, I'm the same. I've got a book on my iPad, so I do most of my reading and listening at the gym actually. So one day a week I run for about 45 minutes, and I've got my iPad sitting on the treadmill and I'm just running, and the rest of the time, I'm listening to audiobooks and stuff. But it's so wonderful. I've fallen in love with audiobooks just because it gives me a chance to read while I'm doing other stuff.
Yeah.
Long haul driving. Amazing. A 6-hour drive, bring it on, because that's almost a whole book, half a book or something. So it's pretty awesome. So the topic for the week is finding a new normal. And life is this crazy, chaotic thing full of upheavals, right?
Yep.
In the show description, I mentioned a few things, big career changes, marriage, divorce, huge things, both, the loss of a loved one, other losses, moving countries. I just moved countries last year. I've been in Canada for 1.5 years after my entire life abroad. And so there's all these big changes, and finding that new normal is so difficult. The thing that my wife and I are struggling with the most is socializing. The friends that we had back where we were before are totally different kind of friends. They're the things they like, the things that we did together are so different from the people here. So it's been difficult finding that new normal. But I think it just kind of comes with time. Where you experience these different things. It's difficult at first, but then you kind of slowly settle in and find that new normal. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah, well, my wife and I just went through, and we're still trying to figure out a new normal because, let's see, about almost 2 years ago, we started fostering 2 little girls, and back in April, we adopted them. So
Wow.
we became instant parents to 6. At the time, they were 5 and 3, and had just turned 3. So she was just basically 2 when she moved in with us.
Wow.
She just turned 3. So we sang 2 single people for majority for all our lives. I'm 45 and been single. Well, we've been together for about 10 years, but we went through everything as single, people. We had no kids, so we got to, okay, let's go do this. We used to go hit the brew hop, hit all the craft breweries, and then we wanted kids, and we made the decision to go through foster care and adopted these 2 little girls. And now we're instant parents, and that changes everything.
What's been the biggest change for you?
I think for me personally, it was how quickly accepted the change. And we used to go hit using one example is like I like my craft beer. So we used to hit in New Hampshire where I live. We have a ton of breweries, and new ones pop up all the time. So we'd go like on a Saturday. We go, okay, let's go hit this one. Then we go up here and we go this one, hit this one. Don't do that anymore. I haven't been hiking in a while.
Wow.
Because can't take them up the mountains I used to hike anymore. Not yet. Someday they're getting started on little hikes here and there.
That's good.
They'll be doing it with me soon enough. I just gotta get back in shape.
Yeah,
that's not in hiking shape anymore.
Yeah. So for us, probably the biggest change of last year was our daughters moved out of the house. We have 4 kids, 20, 19, 17, 15, and the 2 oldest are girls. They both moved out, the first one in February and then the second one in August. And that was a really big change because it's like every night we used to do something together. The 6 of us, we'd watch TV, we'd have dinner, we'd have a snack or whatever. And then, when we were living in Mexico before moving to Canada, we would have a Sunday evening, TV time or something, watching a movie. Now, a year and a half later, 2 years later, it's like the 2 sons who are still at home, they don't want to watch TV. They don't like watching TV, or they don't like the show we're watching or whatever. So it's like, what do we do at night? It's 6:30. The teenagers have been fed. They're on their phones doing their own thing. What do we do? It's really hard to find what the new normal is. But I think in a way that's what kind of keeps life interesting, because you're always like adapting to something new. There's always some new change. And so it's, routines are super comfortable, but eventually they can kind of tend to get a bit boring.
Oh yeah. I'm a big routine guy. I get in my routines and it goes. Change is fine, but I like my routines. But
it's easy. It's comfortable.
Yeah.
A question for you from the audience. How old are your kids? Did their age affect your decision?
Yes, they're 6 and 4 now. And because we never had kids of our own, we kind of wanted to look for younger kids. It's kind of is selfish of us in a way, because there was so many older kids, teenagers that needed a good home, but we didn't have the snuggles and the hugs and all that stuff growing up on the couch watching a TV show with some little kid just right up underneath your shoulder. We didn't have that, and that's what we wanted. So we went looking for younger kids.
Nice. Don't worry, you'll get all the super enjoyable teenage years later.
Oh yeah.
They're coming fast and hard.
Yeah, it's amazing just in the 2 years how much they've changed.
Yeah, 5. It's 6 and 4, man. Those are some pretty big years developmentally. Going from 2 to 4, 3 to 4 is a huge change.
Yep.
And then again, 5 to 6, that's a big change.
Oh yeah.
And how is your wife adapting to this new normal, or the new abnormal, I guess?
Pretty good. She's adapted pretty well. Same as me. We used to do the TV thing. Me and the wife would sit down and watch. We had all the handful of shows we used to watch, all the genre shows, and now I don't watch TV anymore. Once the girls go to bed, hang out with the wife for a little bit, and then she goes to bed, and then I'm in the office writing away.
Wow. So what do you think what would you give some advice for people who are experiencing this sudden upheaval in their lives and are struggling to cope with a new normal? What would you tell them?
That's a Tough one. I'm a kind of go with the flow kind of guy, so not too much bothers me.
Okay.
So like if I gotta make a change, okay, well I gotta do it, so I'm just gonna buck up and do it.
Pretty even keeled about the big things.
Yeah. I thought I was even keel, and I'm figuring out that I really don't have that much patience for yelling and screaming. And if I have to tell you 5 times to do something, stop doing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Patience, but
yeah,
it's rough and it's hard. Everybody with kids goes through it, but we kind of jumped into the deep end, and it's a lot of fun. I love the little buggers, drive me crazy, but love them to death.
That's awesome. I think the best, or the thing that I would tell people is that time is really the only thing that's going to not fix but improve the situation. Like I was saying, we're having trouble finding friends because at our age, I'm early 30s, my wife is late 30s. So the kind of people who have kids the same age as ours are in their 50s often, whereas the people who are our age tend to have kids, like your kids' age.
Yep.
So it's really difficult to find friends with kids the right age and who our kids mesh with, and who have the same interests and hobbies and things like that. So it's been difficult, but over the course of, I guess, the last year and a half of being here in Canada, our social circle has expanded to where now we actually have people we look forward to. And so it's, in a way, it's helped me understand how much I actually rely on social interactions for my, my happiness, my energy, because if I'm locked inside the house all day, which you are often here in Canada, there's 5 inches of snow outside and it's literally minus 18 degrees Celsius, which is crazy cold. When by the end of the week of work, you're like, get me out of here. Let me, talk to people who are not, fictional in my brain. So, having that social circle is more important than ever than when we were living in a country where, you go out 5 nights a week because it's warm outside and, the lights, it's bright until, 8 o'clock at night, as opposed to 4:30 in the afternoon like we get now.
Yeah, we used to spend a lot of time outside with the by the bonfire, drinking beers, and don't really do that anymore. But we kind of were in a different situation. I'm 45, my wife's a couple years younger, and we were afraid we were going to be the older ones with such young kids, but we found that we're actually not. We're on the older side, but most of the people are in the 40s, and so we don't feel as out of place as we thought we were going to. And we've made some good friends just through the kids' interactions. But we were always one of those situations where we didn't have the kids and all of our friends did. So we've always had to make allowances for, we can't come over and hang out because, the kids got this in the morning, so we got to be home and that kind of stuff. So now we're the ones that are going through that. And all our friends have their kids are getting older. So they call like, hey, you want to come hang out? I can't.
Yeah, that's always really difficult. A suggestion from one of the audience for your daughters: instead of beers, the marshmallows.
Yeah, they do love their s'mores.
Yeah,
so we do have a little fires when instead of staying out until midnight. Now it's about 8 o'clock. It's okay, time to go to bed.
And now, has this change in your life, your routine, made you more productive or less productive in terms of writing?
It's actually made me more productive because I know I have such a limited amount of time now because I got to go to bed at some point myself that I'm down to only a couple hours. So if I really want to get this done, then I have to buckle down and do it. And that was kind of in 2016, when I first did my first book, and I'm a huge procrastinator unless I have deadlines. And I didn't have any kind of deadline. So the second book just took forever. And I was like, oh, what if I do this idea? What if I do this idea? And I want to play this game and watch this show. And it never got done. And then once they actually got the girls, and I'm like, okay, I only have about an hour and a half a night to actually do something. And I know if I want to make anything out of this, I got to buckle down and I got to do it. So now that's my motivation is I want to get it done. And so
when I was writing part-time, I would get like every afternoon and then some Friday mornings, and I was like, oh yeah, and I would get so much done. And now that I'm writing full-time, sometimes I feel like I get less done on a daily basis just because I have more time.
Mm-hmm.
And not that the time is wasted, but there's less urgency to it, I guess, because I know, okay, I can do it tomorrow. I've got more time tomorrow versus when it was before. It was like, all right, I've got to do this now or else I'm not going to get it done until next week or something.
Oh, my day job is I'm an architect, and we kind of went through that with deadlines on projects. Is you kind of start off, you're a little bit of a slope as you're going through the project, and then as you get closer to the end, it starts ramping up, and you're like, oh yeah, I got time. Oh crap, I don't have time anymore.
Yeah, see, I hate that last minute stress. So for me, it's like, all right, I know exactly how much time I need to take or how much I have to take. I'm going to do, I'm going to break it down into those, those daily chunks, knock that out, walk away, done. Yeah.
No, I found myself more productive once I started keeping track of my daily word count.
Oh,
that
nice.
Was a huge boost for my production. Is like, okay, if I want to hit a certain amount of words a month, so I got to hit a certain amount of words a day. So that's kind of my deadline to keep me going, to stop my procrastination. Is I got to hit the certain word goal so I can hit a certain end of the month and then keep going through the end of the year. So that's kind of what keeps me going. Is like, I got to hit my goal. I didn't hit my goal yesterday. I got to hit it more tomorrow.
Yeah, for me, it's chapters. Words are harder to track because what should be a 1,000-word chapter expands to 4,000, or what should be a 3,000-word chapter drops to 1,000. It's harder. So having that, okay, the story needs to advance this much, or the chapter, then I get up and walk away with it. But yeah, there was a time, I think for about 2 months, where I was doing like sprints, 25-minute sprints at a time, and keeping track of my word count and stuff. And I think I actually drastically increased production during that time. Like I think by the end of those months, I was almost double, just because I tried a new writing style that required a lot less like editing as I was writing, and it made me more productive. So I know that it's a super great method of getting stuff done, forcing yourself to get stuff done.
Oh yeah, if I don't hit my goal, I hate myself. Like, damn it, I gotta do it. I gotta get more down.
Yeah, exactly. I know that feeling. Well, you know what? We've talked about this for a while, so why don't we move on to the entertainment portion of the evening, when we're going to read from the book. Usually Stevie's here to do voices with me, but he's not, so I guess I'll have to do them by myself. Or do you want to do voices too?
Oh, God, no.
Okay. No. I'll do the voices. You do the narrator.
Oh, God. I got to get a copy. Hold on.
So we're the prologue from the first book. And who are the characters? Tell us about these characters.
The prologue starts off with Hall, and the first character is one of his guildmates, so it actually starts off with them playing the game. It's before they get trapped into the game.
Okay.
So it's the activity they're doing right before the glitch happens.
Okay. And so how many different characters are there?
5.
So there's Redfire.
Yeah, Redfire, Groven. Then I gotta remember these names now. It's been so long.
Lysandra,
Dagger, Groven, Dark Dagger, and Hall.
Okay. So is there anything about these characters that I should bring to life through my voice talent?
Have fun with it.
All right. Groven's a tank, right? So he's going to be a deep, big guy. What about Lysandra?
Tank, so he's a big buff guy.
Okay.
And then I can't even remember now. These characters only appear in the prologue, so it's been so long.
Okay. All right, then I'll have fun with it. Take it away.
It starts off with Redfire, so.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. This lag is killing me tonight.
Redfire said as his hit points dropped to 0 and his avatar disappeared from the screen, his image on the group bar grayed out, joining the 2 others that were already grayed. It was killing everyone. The worst it had been in a long time. There was always lag. The service could only handle so much. With millions playing at the same time, there was bound to be some lag, but what they had been dealing with the last hour had been horrible. They would have canceled the dungeon raid if they had known it was going to be this bad. No one wanted to deal with it, even with their high-priced VR rigs. But by the time the lag hit, they were already halfway through the dungeon and doing pretty well. They had run this same dungeon before. They knew what to expect and were feeling on top of their game. Firefrost Mountain was home to the Jotuns, a race of blue-skinned giants. It was also home to a special set of artifact armor. Each of them had pieces, and they all wanted the rest. There was better armor in some of the newer dungeons. Where am I? That they were all completious. Like they wanted the achievement of completing the Fire Frost armor. I can't even read my own stuff. I have a hard time reading my girls too. So
yeah.
Now only 2 of them would get pieces. 2 Jotun sentries lay the sides of the Firefrost stoneworm. Their bodies were sparkling, indicating there was loot to be had. But first, they had to deal with the Jotun chieftain himself. Dravagor, the Icebane, swung his great axe, the head as tall as a human. It slammed into the icy ground of the room that was carved from the mountain itself. The 2 characters jumped into the sides. Cracks formed on the ground, such was the giant's strength. Sparks flew across the ground, blue lightning streaks erupted on impact. The axe had a debuff. Besides the high damage taken from it, the debuff would cause a slowing effect that lessened the character's attack speed and power. It also caused a lightning over time damage. Getting hit by the axe was not recommended. And they went down a healer. But Groven and Hall knew they had this fight, even with the lag. Having Redfire, the Bowden Shaman in the fight would have helped.
We got this,
Groven said over the voice chat.
Hell yeah!
Lysandra yelled out. The Elven Druid, their healer, had been killed just before Redfire. The lag had been especially bad for her. The connection she had was always bad. Her VR wig wasn't as good as the others, but she was good at her class and they all liked her. Some other groups would have ditched her a long time ago, but the Dragon Riders were not like that. A close-knit group of friends, even though none had met in real life.
I just hope the duelist gloves don't drop,
Doc Dagger muttered. Hall ignored them all, concentrating on what he was doing. His job was that much harder as he was the only DPS. Groven, as the Warden tank, was using his threat abilities to keep Icebane busy and distracted. If Lysandra had still been connected, Groven would have been standing still and taking most of the hits. A stationary target was better for Hall's abilities. There was also no way that Hall could take a hit from Icebane's axe, called Frostbite, one of the rarest drops in the game. Being a skirmisher, Hall was limited to only leather armor. He needed to be able to move quickly. High agility kept him from being hit most of the time, but the low armor meant he couldn't take any big hits. He especially couldn't risk taking a slow debuff. From behind Icebane, Hall crouched low and pushed himself up using his leap ability, one of the skirmisher's class abilities. As he jumped into the air, he stabbed out with his spear using the leaping stab ability. Once, twice, 3 times. With each hit, there was a sharp explosion of light, and Icebane roared. Hall glanced at the health and energy bars that hovered over the giant. The attack had done a lot of damage. Icebane was down to a quarter of his health. He landed on the giant's shoulders, wishing that Screech, his Dragonhawk companion, was still alive. The companion's bonus attack would have been helpful. Oh, I gotta change something in book 3 now. Whoops. I named another Dragonhawk Screech. Whoops, I gotta change that. From the Jotun's shoulder, he stabbed with his spear. A normal attack but still pretty effective with all the bonuses stacked from the weapon itself and the buffs he currently had applied. The timers were in his favor on all of them. None would fade before they should have had Icebane defeated. Hall leaped off the giant, flipping backward and used his flying aim ability to throw a javelin. Icebane was turning as the weapon hit. The end quivered from where it stuck out of Icebane's eye. Hall landed about 15 feet from the fight. I didn't realize the prologue was this long. Watching the bonus damage from the successful attack disappear from Icebane's health bar.
Good shot.
Doc Dagger said, slightly mumbling.
Are you eating?
Lysandra asked, her voice disgusted.
Sorry.
Doc Dagger replied.
Eating a leftover candy. Didn't get many trick-or-treaters this year.
Even though their characters were all dead, they were still able to watch as none would have hit the respawn button. They wanted to see this fight. Hall stood up, watching Groven charge in. The Furbo Warden swung his warhammer at the Jotun's chest. The hammer's head was on fire, green flames dancing around the carved silver head. Pulling another javelin from the quiver on his back, Hall ran toward the fight. He drew the javelin back to throw it when he felt the world slow down. Everything started to stutter and slow. Groven's hammer seemed to skip as it swung toward Icebane. Hall felt his arm creep forward, his fingers releasing the javelin. It was like he was running through water.
Lag spike,
he said through the group chat, and even that was stuttering. You could hear a strange feedback through the channel. The world shifted. That was the only way to describe it. Everything seemed to completely freeze and shake. He saw multiple images of Groven and Icebane, each seeming to slide out of sync with the others.
What the hell?
Lysandra exclaimed.
Never seen a lag spike like that. I'm disconnected.
Redfire cursed.
Me too.
Doc Dagger muttered.
Same.
Lysandra growled.
Come on.
Groven said.
This last blow should do it. Come on!
He continued repeating the words. Hall tried to talk, but he couldn't. He could barely hear the others through the feedback. It hurt his ears, a strange humming and squawking. The words of the others echoed, repeating themselves and duplicated, out of sync. Then it stopped. Everything sped up to normal speed. Better than that, Hall realized. He saw the javelin streaking toward the target. Saw the bright light, flame spreading across Icebane's chest as the hammer's damage over time effect was activated. Icebane's health bar dropped to nearly 0. The javelin struck and took it a little lower.
We got this,
Hall said excitedly. He waited for Groven to respond, for any of them to say something, but his words were greeted with silence. His voice didn't sound the same either. There'd always been something a little mechanical about his voice to the chat, but now it sounded normal, like it did in real life. Weird, Hall thought as he gripped his spear, ready to deliver the final blow to Icebane. Then he stopped. Something was wrong. Groven was frozen, still somehow stuck in the lag spike. The avatar did not move. But he did not look like he was stuck in lag. No shaking or stuttering. All the details of the avatar were tight and defined. And Icebane was moving. The Jotun chieftain was pushed back by the hammer's strike. Green flames spreading across his body, but he recovered quickly. Too quickly. With a growl, the giant raised his axe high with 2 hands. Angered, Icebane swung at the frozen Groven. The blow struck, and Groven just exploded. He didn't fade from the game like normal when a character was killed. He just exploded into thousands of lights, little pixel-shaped pieces. They spread everywhere into the air, then settled to the ground in a small pile before they quickly faded from existence.
What the hell?
Hall said over the voice chat, or he thought he had. Icebane turned like he had heard Hall speak.
Groven?
Hall asked, getting to a stop as the weakened Jotun completely faced him. Icebane's health bar was still shrinking as the damage over time effect worked, but he was still dangerous. There were no slow attack debuffs on him. Not now. He was at full speed and strength, and one blow would end Hall and end this raid.
Guys?
Yes, taking a couple of steps back from the advance in Icebane. He really needed some encouragement from the others right now.
Guys!
Silence. Why weren't they responding? They were all disconnected, all 4, which was weird. Even if they were disconnected from the game servers, the chat was on a separate server. It still should have been active. Cursing, he leapt out of the way of a swing of frostbite, barely in time. Only his class's high agility and evade skills kept him from getting hit. He ran around behind Icebane and leapt up. 3 times his spear hit the giant. 3 bright explosions, and 3 wounds that leaked blue blood.
What the hell?
He exclaimed again as he landed on the icy floor, slipping a little. Another oddity. As never before had he slipped on the throne room floor. The icy look had just been graphics, not a game element, at least not in this raid.
Guys, are you seeing that?
He asked, watching the blood leak down the giant's side and splatter on the ground. When did creatures in the game bleed? There was no gore setting to adjust. Icebane stumbled, falling to his knees. He still held his axe, but he had no more strength to get up. The green flames started to fade, but the damage had been done. Hall saw burn marks across the giant's body, fresh and raw.
Was that some kind of patch?
He asked, standing up, not really expecting an answer, but it was habit. He advanced on the weakened giant. Icebane's still visible health bar was very low, barely any reds showing. Hall leapt up into the air, spear pointing down. None of the others would see the cool finishing move, one of his favorites, but he did it anyway. The spear struck. Bright lights erupted as well as a fountain of blood. Hall saw it hit him, felt drops hitting his cheek where his leather helmet didn't cover the skin. His feet landed on either side of the spear wound, driving the spear in deeper. Icebane's health bar blinked rapidly, indicating it had gone to 0. Hall was breathing heavily, leaning against the spear shaft. Breathing heavily. Breathing? He was breathing? Not breathing in real life. His avatar was breathing.
What the hell?
He said again. This encounter was so strange. Icebane's body was not shimmering. Neither were the Jotun sentries. Something was wrong. There was always loot to be had. Icebane was a guaranteed drop. At least one piece of the artifact green level armor would drop with each kill. Random drops, but there were always drops. The sentries were good for at least some gold, maybe getting lucky with an orange level item drop, but nothing. None of them had any loot. The mountain started to shake, pieces falling from the ceiling above. Stone crashed against stone, large cracks appearing across the ground. Hall stumbled as he landed, jumping off the giant's body. More and more stones fell, ice chunks flying. He felt the sting as a shard cut across his cheek.
Damn.
He cursed and reached up. The cut was stinging, and the gloves came away with blood on the tips. He was bleeding. His avatar was bleeding, and he felt the cut. The shaking intensified, great blocks of stone falling and crashing, sending larger and larger chunks of ice through the air. He had to get out of there. Reaching into his pouch, Hall pulled out his townstone. He ran his fingers over wounds that started to glow a bright blue. The world around him seemed to grow foggy, graying out as the magic took hold. He felt weird, a great weight against his body. He started to shrink, everything around him growing larger and fading. Where was the black screen? When the timer on the town stone's activation went down to 30 seconds, the screen would go black and then come back, and he'd be where he had last set the stone. Everything around him faded away, and all he saw was white, a bright white. Then that changed to a solid black, dark. Hall felt no more.
Ooh, so that's when it glitches, basically.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then he wakes up or comes back into the start of town and kind of has to figure out what's going on from there.
And is the reason for the glitch like a spoiler?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because in Sword Art Online, it begins it and says, like in the beginning, the creator comes on as sort of the god, and he's like, now I've created this world, blah, 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 blah. But if it's a spoiler, you can tell me later once the podcast.
Oh, yeah, it's a big spoiler. I had originally intended to review it slower than I am now. But, a couple of the reviews and some comments from people, I'm kind of speeding up a little bit. So book 3 starts getting into a little bit more what's kind of going on. Still slow. Nothing. They're not going to learn the real reason for probably until about, I don't know, book 8 maybe.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Sounds pretty cool. And how many books do you have in total in your mind?
In my mind, I'm ranging between 9 and 12, so it's going to depend on what happens with books 4, 5, and 6 and where they end up, if I'm going to go 9 or 12. And then I want to do a couple of those side books, and we'll see what Athon lets me do. If they let me go wild, I could go nuts and keep going forever. But
very cool. Very cool. I enjoyed that. Really, that's like the second time that we've had lit RPG / game lit on the podcast. So thank you for sharing that. That was fun.
Yeah.
It sort of appeals to the gamer within all of us, which, we are kind of all gamers, but then making it real. I like it.
Yeah.
I might have to get into game lit more.
Yeah. There's other ones where the characters can log in and out. So like the Stonehaven League by Carrie Summers, the character can log in and out. So the story kind of gives reasons why she logs in and stays logging in when they're having issues within the game world.
Okay.
And kind of also goes through her issues that she has in her real life, which is another interesting look on it as well.
Interesting. That's very cool. So, we're coming to the end of the podcast. Why don't you tell our viewers and listeners where they can find you?
Everywhere. I'm pretty active in the various lit RPG Facebook groups. There's a couple of them. There's lit RPG books, game lit society. You can usually find me in any of those. My website is Ozzy Writes, OSSYWRITES. I'm on Instagram under Ozzy Writes. Then Twitter is just under Troynos, TROYNOS. And that's pretty much everywhere.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. Sorry, we apologize for Stevie being a total bad guy, not showing up at all. He did this to us with the last episode of last year too. He's been super busy, so
it's all good.
We'll pretend like that's a good enough excuse for him. Anyways, that is our show for tonight. Tune in next week when we have our very first sci-fi guest on, the wonderful Josh Hayes. I've been on the Keystroke Medium podcast a handful of times, so I figured I owe him a chance to come on.
Finished up Echoes of Valor last week.
Oh, awesome.
Very good.
Yeah, we're going to talk about his whole military sci-fi stuff. It's going to be awesome. And that's it for the show. So as Stevie always says, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks for hanging out with us. Have an awesome evening.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.